We're visiting Arizona's Grand Canyon today, 446 kilometers long, over 1,800 meters deep, with the Colorado River cutting through the canyon for millions of years. There is nearly 2 billion years of the Earth's ecological history exposed here. The Native American Pueblo people, who are descendants of the ancestral Puebloans, consider the canyon a holy site. And what a sight it is! This is Kaleidoscope, where we are positive, daring, different. Welcome. Jump on the critical thinking train today and ponder on Sri Lanka's investment climate while enjoying a pit biryani. Did you know that Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn? And remember to subscribe, follow and like us for more. Thank you, Srilanka Live, CDB and The Daily Morning. You are amazing partners to have on our show.
CDB Hybrid Leasing. Enjoy exclusive interest rate and much more for hybrids, plug-in hybrids and EV vehicles.
Looking back at the week that was on CDB Snapshot, Sri Lanka's Purchasing Managers Index expands to 59.5 in July 2024 from June's 56.6. July's tea exports are 21.35 million kilograms, a 6.2% year-on-year decline. Sri Lanka releases the world's longest stamp at 205 millimeters, depicting the Sri Dalada Perahera. Sri Lanka's tourism authorities are targeting 3 million tourists in 2025 with a new global campaign. Time's Kid of the Year is Heman Bakel, who invented a soap that prevents skin cancer. This joke is deemed the funniest at the Edinburgh Fringe Fest. I was going to sail around the globe in the world's smallest ship, but I bottled it.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Welcome to Srilanka Life News Capsule. With several years of turbulence in our rearview mirror, Sri Lanka marches forward. We've seen a real estate boom with a projected CAGR of 7.5% from 2023 to 2028. The chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange stated recently that he is hopeful the stock market will perform well for 2024 as economic conditions continue to improve. The million-dollar question is, do we invest or do we stay away? To give us her take is Tinushka Soisa, who has years of experience in fund management, investment, private equity and research and is currently an investment consultant and non-executive director at Empower Capital Securities. So with elections in the offing, what is the investment climate in Sri Lanka like? You know, the good, bad and the ugly.
Sri Lanka is at an interesting point in time, very pivotal in fact. And we've been through a terrible time over the last couple of years. Since 2018, we've had the constitutional crisis and it's just been one crisis back to back after that. The silver lining has been, over the last 2 years, we were able to effect policy changes that should have been effected over the last 2 or 3 decades. So that, I believe, is giving us a good foundation to progress from here if so we choose. Now, I understand that there's a lot of anxiety about the sort of election candidates that we have coming up. We don't have a lot of room to change what has been done so far. And because there is so little fiscal room to change, whichever candidate comes in, election rhetoric aside, I hope will make reasonable choices for the country.
How do investors perceive Sri Lanka?
So we've had the traditional investments such as real estate, of course, gold, and then the spectrum of bank and finance investments. But beyond that, what is accessible to the general public has honestly not gone beyond that. Now, I think that is definitely going to change if this investment climate persists in terms of, inflation is low, interest rates are at reasonable levels. Going forward, for investment and growth to happen, interest rates should move down a little bit more. And at that point in time, investors are going to look for yield. And at that point, we're going to see a lot more investment products coming out. But right now, I think our spectrum of investments is land, apartments, fixed deposits at various institutions, and perhaps gold. And we did see currency being an investment choice also the last few years.
What risks are we looking at then?
You have your spectrum of investments where you go from low risk to high risk. And then, of course, cash and cash equivalents, government securities are your lowest risk. You don't have to think too much. You know you're going to get your money back and you have a decent yield, hopefully to beat inflation. And then you have your middle risk categories like land and then the various FDs. So what you have to remember is you have to look for adequate return for the risk that you're taking. I know higher interest rates are always good and you're always happy to get it, but you have to understand that if an institution is offering you a higher interest rate, that it is probably because there is a higher risk associated with that. So you have to look at there is no one size fits all, unfortunately. So you have to look at your own risk appetite. So that would include, of course, your risk spectrum, your liquidity needs, and whatever is happening in your life, essentially. So based on those, you would have a mix of all of these investments.
What's your investment outlook like in the short to medium term?
Short term is definitely going to be quite volatile because of election uncertainty and people are just waiting to see what happens. But if you look at the economic data that's coming out in terms of inflation, growth, interest rates and whatnot, things are improving slowly. And with the sort of changes we've made to, the tax changes, even the SOE reforms, those are very pivotal reforms which we haven't seen in our lifetime. So given those changes, if that continue to come through, I think Sri Lanka is on a very, very good platform to, leapfrog over the next few decades.
And here's a peek at the markets this week. At the Colombo Stock Exchange, average daily trading volumes decreased further as investors seem to be waiting for political direction with the impending presidential election next month. Oil prices moved down further, dropping below $75 per barrel as tensions in the Middle East eased and on fears that an economic slowdown in China would lead to lower demand for oil. But worrying data from China, the world's second largest economy, shows new home prices falling in July at the fastest pace in 9 years, industrial output slowing, export and investment growth dipping, and unemployment rising. Meanwhile, gold has gained nearly $470 or 22% so far this year and is currently at record historical highs of more than $2,500 per ounce. The Khasi people of Meghalaya, India, have been training tree roots to grow across rivers and form bridges, and they've been doing it for over a century. These living root bridges have become essential for survival and connection. Flight instructor John Kotwicki converts airplanes into cozy living spaces for those visiting his pilot's lodge, and it's a fascinating study of repurposing one thing to be something else. According to the Reboot Foundation, even though 94% of people believe that critical thinking is extremely important, 86% of them believe that those skills are largely lacking in the population. Less than 20% of people in a study of 40,000 faculty members in the American Council of Education were actually able to elaborate on what critical thinking is. The bottom line is, critical thinking is a need for people taking part in a democratic society, and obviously paramount to leaders because it is the core of mindful decision making. With me today is Lalit Gunaratna, or as we know him, Lefty, and he is an advocate of mindfulness and also the need for critical thinking in leaders. He's back on our show after a year, and I caught up with him while on his short stay here in Sri Lanka. Why do you think Sri Lanka has not addressed critical thinking at leadership level?
Well, critical thinking is not something that's addressed anywhere in the world because our education system, which just focuses on science and technology and the technological side, so it doesn't lend itself to to train people to think critically. So that's why. So it's a global issue, and it's an issue that starts from our education system.
What are you seeing in our leaders today, both corporate and political leaders?
The business leaders have to deal with profit and then keeping the organization going, as well as meeting customer needs and all of that. So that requires a different set of skills, as you know, whereas a politician has a different set of skills to keep the masses happy, and they go with the trends. But there's a nexus between corporates and politics right now, globally, in the democratic world, which is creating a problem for us right now, because politics is an arm of the corporate world right now.
So why do you think critical thinking is important in today's context of leadership?
There's a lack of it. That's why it's so important. The world's problems that we are facing right now, whether it's poverty, whether it's the conflicts, the wars, climate issues, all of that is as a result of us not thinking critically about things. It's about finding ourselves thinking in a short-term way, profit-oriented focus, and all of that is very much also us being conditioned to be on the left hemisphere of the brain. Left hemisphere of the brain is tyrannical, is objective oriented, it gets things done fast, it takes shortcuts. So it doesn't lend itself to think about things in a much wider spectrum, so in a holistic way. So that focus of getting things done at any cost is what then prevents us from thinking critically. At the moment, things are happening so fast that we don't have time to think critically. So that's one of the biggest issues that we are having. Expectation for results is so it's sped up to a level that we cannot push back and think about things in a critical way.
Is there a difference between male and female leaders?
Yes, I mean, the males and females think differently, obviously. We have a different biological makeup. The good thing is that the corporate world, the political world, are now having men and women coming together. And that's a very important thing. 2,500 years of men running this world, we have brought it to the brink. So I think it's important that now that partnership culture takes place. In esoteric terms, it's called the age of Aquarius. It's the age of the partnership culture.
Who makes a better leader, a male or a female?
Having a combination, playing that role, the yin and yang, is an important way of moving forward. So that's why we need to see in our legislatures, we need to see in our corporations, women and men play that role together, and any others in between, right? In between, everybody has some attribute that they bring to the table. It's about men getting out of the way now and enabling others to also come in and encouraging others to play a leadership role. And that I see that happening now, and I see the new generation is like that.
So here's to more critical thinking. Thank you very much, Lefty. Biryani comes in all shapes and sizes, and of course flavors, but yet each preparation is different and fascinating to watch. We visited Vandaloo Bay on the east coast of Sri Lanka recently and came across this unique cooking method of a biryani, a slow cook inside a pit. It all starts off with the usual ingredients, aromatic spices and condiments, adding a heady bouquet to the onions, garlic and vegetables being sautéed. A meat of your choice is added, and then the rice. Now here's where it all becomes rather magical. The pot itself is sealed with aluminium foil and carried to a 4-foot pit dug into the ground. The foil has to be airtight to ensure that once the pot of biryani is buried, it is well sealed. The pit is lined with a barrel in which hot coals simmer. The biryani is lowered into this barrel and the cover placed. Wet jute and palmyra leaves are placed on top of the barrel as insulation, and further insulation is added when sand is shoveled on top of it. Additional meats could be marinated, wrapped in foil, and hung on top of the pot of biryani to slow cook. This biryani will slow cook for 3 to 4 hours and will be ready just in time for dinner, releasing some heady aromas that only a pit biryani can offer. And I dare say, this biryani is probably offered only at Vandaloo Bay. Well, I hope enjoying a pit biryani is on your to-do list this weekend. We'll catch you next week.